All right, class, let's start with queuing. All right, this is a pretty easy week. We are going to just explain what queuing is. So let's start with the definition. Queuing is a theory that deals with the problems which involve queuing or waiting. Since we were kids, we have learned to wait in line, right? So in there is that uh, we have to wait in line if we wanted to play Foursquare. We had to wait in line if we're playing pickup basketball for someone to lose. It is a problem that we have in waiting for line because humans are not very good at waiting. If anything that we've learned from COVID is that we have to wait for things a little bit more and we have to have a little bit more patience. So typically, examples might be banks, supermarkets, waiting for service. Computers is for waiting for response. So COVID, great example is that they didn't allow as many people in there, so we had more queuing, more wait times. Same thing with banks as well. Computers is, my dad every once in a while calls me up and says, "Hey, I have to taking forever to for my computer to start," and it's just queuing up for him to take it. Those are all different definitions of queuing. So why do we queue? What's the importance of this? It's because it's a level of service that we have to provide to our consumer. How long do people have to wait? Well, the whole purpose or the whole idea is that we want people to wait the least amount of time and we want to make sure that it costs us less amount of money. So if you think about it, what is the one of the most annoying things when you go grocery shopping? And that's in case you don't Instacart. And if you don't Instacart, you're going to start because it's just amazing service. But one of the most annoying things for me is when I wait in line and I have to stand in the checkout line and I have to empty my shopping cart and then they have to rebag everything in doing so. Why is that uh, um, part of the process that's annoying in the shopping? Is because it's downtime. There's nothing productive in there other than, hey, I collected all my things. Now I want to pay for it. And I have to redo that work. I have to put everything on this conveyor. Years ago, they tried to make RFID, so every single package, and then you would just walk through. Costco's working on that. Because if you think of all the bottlenecks that happen in the queuing process at Costco, imagine now you just go into Costco, you pick up the TV and you pick up the chicken, you pick up a book that you wanted to read, and it's all in your shopping cart, and you just walk out the door, and your membership card is scanned, your all your items are scanned, and then you check on your phone for your receipt, and you go to their app and everything's paid for, all the discounts in there, and you didn't even have to go through the cashier. That they are working on that through RFID, and so that we can just be completely done and not have to wait in those queuing models. But then think about this as well as promise. What is the biggest cost structure for a grocery store, a Target, or a Costco? One of them is the one is to put up all the inventory up and nice and looking pretty. But the other one is the ability for it to be just, if you think about it, the cost of someone ringing you up, right? And the mistakes that they make, overcharging you, to undercharging you, to not scanning items, things like that. I've had people in class that have told me that, every once in a while they forgot to scan something and they were okay with it. Well, in that sense, is that part of it. So we are building these simulation models to understand how long people want to wait. And one of the best people that are the one of the best companies that it does this is Disneyland. So if the wait times are super long, let's say on Pirates of the Caribbean, and kind of getting annoyed, all of a sudden you start to see a character come. And it takes your mind off of waiting and you're starting to look at the character and you're like, oh, there's character, there's Captain Hook or Peter Pan or maybe Mickey Mouse. And so you start to look at that and you start to get your mind off of how long it is. Another thing is that they start to see in a simulation model, or things that they want to do, is they start to map things. So now they're going to have the marching band come through, things like that, so that they know how long they can provide this level of service for consumers, so that they don't get upset and mad and go home and leave the cart empty. And the same thing goes for online. All right. So there is a mathematical analysis. In this class, we really aren't going to get into the depths of it. It's its own kind of class in there. But there is a mathematical analysis of queues and waiting times, and how to use that analysis so that you can actually get the right amount of people, so that you have the right market demand. So a lot of times is that we have constraints, and we've learned a lot about constraints in the linear programming model, is that we also have constraints in queues. Because what happens if we're busy from the hours of 8 to about 9, or 8 to 9:30, but then we're completely dead, our store is just not selling anything in that queuing model, or we're not getting phone calls from 9:30 to about 11:30. Well, we have a constraint because we have to employ people for 4 hours. And so in that, or 2.5, or something like that, we have to employ them for a submissive amount of time based off of those negotiations. Most of the time in California, it's 4 hours. So queues arise when short-term demand for service exceeds the capacity. Well, a store, phone calls, a lot of those things exceed capacity at different levels. Sometimes, how many times have you ever gone somewhere and it was completely empty, and you're like, I'm always coming at this time, and you kind of found a golden way of finding and shopping for it. So most often caused by random variations in service times and times between customers' arrivals. So one time it was completely empty at Costco, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. I went in, I was enjoying the hot dog, I was having pizza, I was shopping. This is all pre-COVID, and I was having such a great time. And I go in and I check out, and there's no line, and I'm just like, wow, this is so great. And what I found out was that the random variation was that there was a huge accident on the 10 freeway right before you're getting off on the freeway to go into the Costco that I go to. And hopefully everyone was okay in the accident, and I feel bad because I enjoyed the time. But one of the reasons why this variation caused was a random accident that happened on the freeway, and people were able to get off the freeway and go into Costco. Well, the same thing can happen as well. Would say that there's a bad accident, and they say, hey, I'm going to decide to just go to Costco and get my grocery shopping done, and brave that long line instead of waiting on the freeway and listening to music or talk radio or podcasts. So all those things in there. So long-term demand for services greater than capacity, the queue will explode. And so in there is that we've seen this happen too, where people or restaurants or areas like places that like sporting events where people really want to go to it, and then they just can't. All right. So there is a fine line. We have a total cost, the cost of service, and the cost of waiting. And so if we're at a place, we'll say we're at Nordstrom's or Bloomingdale's, we definitely don't want to wait in a long line. And so we're paying an extraordinary amount of prices. So think about the Ritz-Carlton. How long will you be okay for waiting to check in? Well, that total cost is a part of the cost of service. And so in there is, if you think about it, when we have this line here, I'm going to use my cursor here, and we have our cost of services go up and we also have them go down for the cost of waiting. So in there is that we have a total cost variant. So in there is that the less that we want to have in there, it's the less we want to wait, the more it's going to cost us. So sometimes it's okay to make people wait because they don't want to pay for higher prices. All right. I found, here's some more examples. We have commercial queuing systems. It's a commercial organization services external customers. dentists, banks, ATMs, gas stations, plumber, uh, garage, transportation. Vehicles are customers or services. Vehicles waiting on toll stations and traffic lights. All those are queued. Business, international, customer services in there, inspection stations, belts. Social services is judicial processes, the ER, hospitals, waiting. We see queuing everywhere, and it's an amazing problem that we try to solve. All right, here I am. Here are the Christian perspectives. I found all these here that we do here as in the Bible verses on waiting in time. I liked 2 Peter, verse 3, chapter 3, verse 9. The Lord is now slow to fulfill his promises, as some count slowness, but it is patience toward you, not wishing that any should perish, but all should reach repentance in there. And I think that's a really good one. You can use any of these. You can find your own. There's a lot of good patience or waiting Bible verses out there. Of course, if you have any questions or concerns, you can let me know. I'm just a phone call, email away.